How did you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone. Today I'm going to show you an update on the progress basically for the easy mode Sorc on the Morrowind PTS. This isn't a build video as such. I'm not going to do that on a PTS because I personally think that's cheating because not everything comes through to the main server, but I will show you how it's going basically based on some of the new changes. Mainly the heavy attack damage has been reduced and the light damage has been increased. Also, sustain has been altered, obviously, as you know, where certain champion points have disappeared, and we now have to work off of a heavy attack, which is what this build is all about, so that part of it shouldn't really matter. But we want to see how this has been changed. Now, some of the gear I'm wearing is not even close to optimal. I've thrown on whatever I can get on the PTS, because obviously, as some of you may know, my main platform is actually on the PS4. So on the PC, I open up the little boxes that the PTS gives us, and I put on what I can to get as close to my setup as possible. Just throwing on a couple of things now. Now, this is lacking maybe 3, 4, maybe 5k DPS overall, based on the stuff that I would usually wear. But for the purpose of the test, like I said, I got on what I could. This rotation's pretty much the same. Although I have thrown in an extra skill. That skill is there for 2 reasons, in fact. It's usually a beast trap, but I'll put destructive clench, I think it was called, for the lightning dot, just for increased lightning damage, extra execute power, also the extra status effect to proc more off balance, all that kind of stuff. Now, you don't have to have that. That's just in a situation where you don't use a beast trap. Primarily, I use a beast trap all the time almost, because there's usually ads running around and you can just strategically place them and still get the bonus from it. But whatever, for this test I didn't use it. Now you can see that although the heavy attack damage has been reduced, the damage is actually pretty good. I'm getting an average of around 12.9, I think it is. Yeah, no, when the weapon glyph procs, about 13k a tick every half second. Now with my optimal gear solo, that actually pushes to about 15. So you're talking 30k DPS if you crit just on the heavy, not the rest of the damage. And everything else I'm using also applies on top of that, and that actually is AoE also, because we have splash damage to consider, wall of elements, liquid lightning, blah 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 blah. It's all AoE. So it's still pretty strong. Like I said, not optimal setup, but it's not too bad. Now, where are we? The DPS, there we go. 31.3. I can push to 32 on this particular setup, but with my optimal setup I can get 34 to 35, and that's 100% solo. With your trial buffs, I would like to tell you that it's only like 5 or 6k higher, but it's actually not. It's a lot higher, somewhere in the region of like 15 to 20k increase on top of that. It's crazy. So, oh, here we go. We're going to show you some AoE as well. Just plop these guys down here. But trial buffed, like fully trial buffed with all your spell power cure, powerful assault if you're using it, war horns, all those types of things. Your ticks, instead of being 13 to 15k, end up being like 19k plus. Now it doesn't take a rocket scientist to notice that if you're getting crits all the time, which you should be most of the time in a trial anyway, especially with all the buffs, 19k every half a second, it's 38,000. You add your wall of elements, liquid lightning, beast trap, destructive touch or clench, whatever it's called, ulties, executes, all those kind of things together, and you've got a very healthy amount of single target and AoE DPS without any pressure on your sustain at all. You can still buff, you can still shield, you can still heal if you need to by using your own damage and heal buff. It's really strong. Now the purpose of this part of the test was to demonstrate not only does the single target damage do really well, but the AoE, of course, is where this really excels, because most builds have very high single target with pretty much crappy sustain, if I'm honest, not much survivability, not much utility, all that kind of stuff, which is fine. You can go glass cannon if you want, and you will actually do really, really well in terms of overall damage. But if you want to survive, if you want to self-buff, self-sustain, all that kind of stuff, and do both single target and AoE damage, because in most situations, in fact nearly all of them, apart from I think maybe 2 or 3 bosses, there's adds or extra enemies coming in, AoE is very important. So especially on trial situations and dungeons as well, because you're greeted by multiple enemies all at the same time. So in that situation, I mean, what do? Do you sit there and single target the hell out of one after the other, or do you hope that your AoE is high enough to take on maybe multiple mobs while you focus down one of them? Either one of the two works, but this particular build is centered around doing as much area damage and single target at the same time. So it's overall strong, it's overall survivable, it's overall powerful in the way it's set up. Now, the trick is not just to use one of these, the trick is to use more than one, because the more people using this setup, the more constant off balance you have, and the more these guys get a benefit from them. As you can see from that DPS test itself, roughly 30k DPS on the single target, and an easy 20 plus on everything surrounding it. So it's still got incredible sustain, it's still got very high AoE damage, it's still got reasonable single target damage. Obviously, like I said, I don't have my optimal setup on, so I'm losing quite a lot of damage, but for the purpose of just demonstrating that the fact that the heavy attack setup for this particular build is still very strong, hopefully that saves some stress, because I know a few people were worried about the recent nerf. It's not actually a nerf, if I'm honest. In fact, it's actually really, really good. Light attack builds can do more damage, and heavy attack builds still do very, very well if they put their points in the right place. So hopefully that helped. This is going to be updated as soon as the patch lands, but I will not be saying any gear or anything like that beforehand. Like I said, I think it's cheating on PTS if you make a build video, so I will do it when it's live. I'll make sure I farm all the gear, make sure it's all shiny and all the rest of it. Incidentally, speaking of shiny, we are almost at 3k subscribers, and we have a massive prize to give away, and it's a lot shinier than the last ones. And not only can you join in on the PS4 EU server, but every single server is welcome to take part. So keep your eyes peeled. Within the next 24 hours, I will be posting that video. Check out the Patreon page, check out the website. Thank you very much for subscribing. If you're not subscribing already, please do hit that button. It is free. Thanks again, and bye bye.